Good afternoon and good day, wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, which is
The longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now officially syndicated on the IBGN network.
excellent. All
Almost
right.
there. Still needs a bit of
Almost there.
polish, doesn't it?
Yeah, spit and polish, absolutely. But we're getting there. Today, we're providing a guide to authentic leadership in just 3 words: be the buffalo. We have a special guest, Dan Kopp, to help us with the discussion. Dan has an extensive and distinguished career, from serving as a military police officer to guiding corporate leadership strategies. These days, he serves as CEO and founder of Leading Like a Buffalo and is author of The Power of Me Leadership: 9 leadership tenets for every leader. But before we bring Dan on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, so audience participation is highly encouraged. All right, so with that, introductions. Bertrand, would you kick us off, please?
Of course, my name is Bertrand Godillot. I'm based out of France, where I run Odysseus and Co. And we are specialized in social selling, a proud DLA partner as well.
Yes, thank you. Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and yes, I always love this show. It's a lovely way to kind of finish up the week because we always have such fascinating guests on, don't we?
That we do. Thank you for that. Tim.
Hello, everybody. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Thank you very much, and welcome back.
Thank you.
And myself, I'm Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results and a proud DLA Ignite partner. I'm not famous for writing anything.
Yeah.
All right. As I said, this week on the Digital Download, we're going to speak with Dan Kopp. Dan is joining us again. And this time, we're going to be speaking about his work helping shape the careers of leaders across various industries with his innovative approach to leadership training and mentoring. So let's bring him on.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi, Dan. How you doing?
I am great. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you.
Absolutely. So Dan, let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got here.
Well, I'm Dan Kopp. I have a long career in leadership. I started in the Army back in the day and haven't looked back. So after I got out of the Army, I got into education. I taught. I was a principal. I was a superintendent and got bored doing that. And now I'm in leadership consulting and mentoring and coaching, and I love it. And I realized several years ago, my mission in life is to help other leaders. And that's what I'm able to do in my company. And my legacy is the impact those leaders have on their people and their organizations. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who I am, as long as the people I help are having a positive impact. That's what it's all about.
Fantastic. Dan, let's start with a foundational question. What do you mean by be the buffalo?
Be the buffalo is a pretty easy phrase to say, but it's not necessarily easy to do. It's another way to look at it is addressing or dealing with issues in front of you that need to be addressed. Don't run from them. Don't delay them. Many people understand what I'm saying when I simply say those words, but let me challenge you all to think about a conversation that you've had to have with a loved one, a coworker, a boss, somebody who works for you, a colleague, whatever, and it's been a critical conversation, a courageous conversation. 99% of the time, the dread leading up to that, because of the stories we tell ourselves, the dread leading up to that is worse than the actual conversation. So in other words, why delay having the conversation? Why delay addressing it? Many things happen if you ignore it, because if there's something that needs to be addressed, it's not going away on its own. If you're a leader of an organization and you recognize something that needs to be addressed, others see it too. And if you don't address it, they're going to assume you condone it. And the best part about it is I hate confrontation, but I like it behind me better than I like it in front of me. So if I've got an issue to address, I'm going to address it and get it behind me. Not because I like to destroy people or confrontation or anything like that. It's just, let's get it behind me so I can sleep easy tonight.
So in your book, you have 9 tenets, and the first one is be the buffalo. How does that translate into a daily leadership practice?
We oftentimes encounter, whether it's routine tasks, daily things, something you overhear that somebody said that was wrong or whatever. We always encounter things that cause us to say, ooh, boy, this is either not fun, I don't want to do this task, or I can save it till later, or this thing over here is more important, or I really don't want to address his behavior right now because I'm not ready, whatever. So on a daily basis, address the things. Don't lament about, woe is me, I've got all these things to do, just go do them. Whether it's a negative connotation in a critical conversation lens, or if it's simply tasks that you've been putting off. And if you think about that to-do list, and there's things on your to-do list that are not appealing to you that you constantly put off, the thought process and the grief that you encounter when you're constantly delaying those things and seeing them on your to-do list, it's causing you undue stress. Just get it behind you. Go do the things and be the buffalo and address the things that need to be addressed.
I can absolutely relate to that. It's the end of the semester. Well, semester just ended, and I had all sorts of grading to be done. I was dreading the grading. I was dreading posting the grades because I was dreading the comments that I would get regarding the grades. And each and every student that reached out to me, they deserved a direct response, and it was agonizing. All of that dread that you talk about going beforehand, well, now it's behind me, and
Right.
and I'm grateful to have it behind me. Is there something that I should have done, could have done to alleviate all of that stress just thinking about it?
It goes back to learning. I mean, you recognize it. You're already there. You're receptive to the idea of being the buffalo. Let's assume today you have an opportunity today. It's Friday, and you have an opportunity today to post grades, but you're like, I don't want to deal with the negative stuff over the weekend, and I know it's coming. Post them today as opposed to thinking about it all weekend. Think about the weight that's off your shoulders going into the weekend because you've done the task as opposed to worrying about it. And then think about Sunday about 4:00 when the Monday blues start kicking in, and 5:00 and 6:00. And then you're up at 3 a.m. Monday thinking, oh, today is the day I have to post those grades. Get it behind you. It's not worth the stress. And the fact that you recognize that it's a valuable thing and that you're encountering that stress, that should reinforce your action in the next time you face it at the end of next semester. Remember this feeling.
Yes.
So Dan, sorry. What are the reasons you think people don't do it?
They're not confident. That's a huge one, or they're just afraid of a real conversation. I've encountered so many leaders that are very good at telling people what they want to hear, but a truly good leader tells people what they need to hear. And when you're in a situation where you being the buffalo is around a negative connotation and you're having a critical conversation, it's hard to put yourself in the position to tell people what they need to hear. At the end of the day, that's exactly what they crave. That's what they need. That's what the organization needs. That's what you need. But it's hard to do. So it's easier to put that off than it is to actually embrace it. And again, it's not about destroying the person in front of you. It's about addressing the issue, which leads into several of my other tenets that I discuss in the book as well.
Okay.
As you bring that up, let's get into some of those. The next tenet you have is take care of your people.
That's
obvious.
It is obvious, but you know how often it's overlooked overlooked. And picture small business leaders, medium-sized business leaders, mid-level managers, they've all got tasks, probably 60 to 80 hours worth of tasks to complete in a 40-hour work week. So when you're inundated with tasks, especially if you're a small or medium-sized business owner where you're doing everything under the sun, you are the HR person, you're the CFO, etc. It's very easy to lose sight of your most valuable asset, and those are your teammates. So with my other company, Dynamico, as I worked through a managerial lens with a lot of small business and medium-sized business owners, I realized these people are forgetting the humans who are their teammates. And you're right, it's very basic. It's a no-brainer, but we often forget it. And some people think, oh, what can I do now? It's just another thing to do. And I'm a firm proponent of don't add to what you're doing, just do things differently. And it could be as casual as this happened a couple of years ago. I was working with a executive director of a nonprofit, and as part of their nonprofit, they had a coffee shop and a little bakery. And I walked in, grabbed a cup of coffee. The staff person tried to upsell me in great service. And so then I'm talking to him about leadership, and he was sort of sinking in his chair as we talked. He's like, how do I do leadership on top of everything else I'm already doing? I said, here's a prime example. I just told you when I came in here how great the staff people were out front. Casually walk by later and say, hey, I've been told you guys are doing a great job today. It's as simple as that. That wouldn't take him 5 seconds out of a walking past their counter sometime today, and he could do that. That's a baby step in the right direction, and it doesn't take a lot of time. But if he hadn't done that in the past, all of a sudden his people are being recognized, and they know that they are appreciated. So I never, ever say, here's all these things to do and add it to your plate. Here's approaches to take that will make you a better leader while you're doing the things you're already doing.
We have a comment from the audience I wanted to bring on. It's from Ty Fershing. I apologize, Ty, if I butchered your last name, but I'll always try. Ty says, by posting today, this is regarding the grades, it also alleviates the stress that students incur by waiting. So if you do what's best for the students, getting rid of their stress, it also is what's best for you. You're right, Ty. I appreciate that perspective. I hadn't even thought about it from their point of view, but yes. Adam, were you going to?
Yeah, I was going to say that success in all of its different facets is really simple when you break it down, isn't it? And yet we often use the phrase simple and easy are not the same thing. And actually modeling this behavior, we've all had bad leaders and we've all had good leaders. And often the difference between bad and good is not enormous. It's those little things like walking past saying, Dan, I just hear you're doing a great job today. Well done. Keep up the good work, and pat them on the back. And thank you for your efforts this week, and all of that sort of thing that take no time, don't cost any money, but they do make people smile and make them feel valued. And I think what is amazing about business and indeed life as a whole is that often we overlook these little things. We go, well, that's obvious. Yeah, it is, but you're not doing it. And, in what we do, we say to people, you need to have a great profile. You need to engage with other people. You need to post content. You need to generate conversations off the back. And they go, yeah, well, obviously. And we say, yeah, but you're not doing any of that stuff. And they go, oh, no, I'm not, am I? And actually, often it's just this kind of documenting those little, and I think often that these strategies are built of myriad of little tactical things that people can do easily, aren't they?
Well said. And when I was talking about Be the Buffalo, there are other tenets that fall into that. Taking care of your people is a prime example. If Rob were always 100% of the time thinking, how can I take care of my people through a leadership lens and a managerial lens? In this case, we're talking management because it's a task that he has to perform. If he's thinking, how can I take care of them? Oh, they're probably as stressed about their grades as I am right now. Let's take that stress off their shoulders. So there's two lessons Rob's learned today. He's feeling angst about doing it, And he now realizes the kids are feeling the same angst. He's going to remember that at the next time he has to post grades. And just do it.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So the next one I think I like. Lead like a king.
Yeah, lead like King
not
Arthur.
Just any king. King Arthur. Okay.
Lead like King Arthur. I had a colleague give me some feedback on my book a couple of years ago, and he said, that lead like King Arthur, I had no idea where you were going with that, but I love it. So basically, King Arthur, real or not, still the jury's out on that one. Real or not, he led with the Knights of the Round Table, and basically he had his trusted advisors around the table, and they all had a voice. Now, whether it was a democratic process or just a unilateral decision he had to make, the discussion that occurred around a table when you embrace your teammates' voices, your decision, even if it's yours to make. And I just had this discussion with the leaders the other day, but it's my decision. Why would I? Because maybe the decision could be better if you embrace those who are affected by it or who have a different point of view. So I always argue with people that argue the point that if you embrace your trusted advisors, whether it's a leadership team of 2 or 3, or you've got a leadership team of 8 or 9, whatever it is, they're going to have points of view that will either reinforce what you were already thinking or are going to alter your decision. And the more diverse your trusted advisors are, the better your decisions are going to be. Just because we're all roughly middle-aged white males, roughly. So, but we're drastically different. We're in different companies. We live in different countries. We had different life experiences. I served in the military when I was younger. Perhaps you haven't. All those things that go into make us unique are going to change our points of view. And when it comes up to a topic, how do we address X, Y, or Z? We're going to have different ideas because of who we are at our core. And even if it's Rob's decision to make, his decision may be positively influenced by our input.
But also, it's like wisdom of crowds, isn't it? You know, if you watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and very rarely when someone says, I want to ask the audience, very rarely do the audience get it wrong. And it's not because they know the stuff. It's because when you aggregate the knowledge of all of those people, it covers a very wide base. And I think that that's one of the things that we see in modern business. You know, diversity and inclusion and taking that seriously. This is not about a box ticking exercise. This is about making sure that you have a diverse cross section of people from different cultures and different ethnicities and all of the different types of people that there are. And you try to build a community of those people because that reflects what the real world looks like. Correct. And no matter how good you are as a leader, you know, we see it with people that are clearly geniuses like Elon Musk. You know, he has invented lots of things. He has been massively successful in his companies, but the fact remains that he's still making some catastrophically bad ideas because he isn't adopting this attitude. He's very much, he's leading more like General Gaddafi than King Arthur, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. And Adam, you're right. It goes back to I don't know everything. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not the smartest guy in the room and I don't know everything. So I'll give you an example. When I was a superintendent, I had a new athletic director. Like, all right, you've got philosophical points of view about things I've never even considered in my life. So help educate me about these things. And I became a better leader of a school district because of his tutelage and point of view, because I embraced his voice. So there's countless times when you have an opportunity as a business leader, as an advisor, just an employee, a teammate, where you engage others, you are going to be better at your job by their input, and you'll also understand their jobs better as well. It makes you a better holistic person.
Dan, don't you think that leader...
Bertrand, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let Andrew know. I see your comments coming through on my phone, but they're not coming through in the stream here. So, hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
I apologize. I can't bring your comments on screen. Bertrand, back to you.
Yeah, sorry. So the question was, leaders that don't do this, Dan. So basically, don't listen or don't take advice. First of all, I would question whether they are true leaders, but the point I'm trying to make is: are they doing this because they fear the frustration that they could create taking an opposite decision, or what is their? Because again, back to some of the basics. I think you are stronger if you listen to your team, but so there must be a good reason why they don't, basically.
At times, I've encountered, quite honestly, lack of confidence. I can't go to my team and profess ignorance or profess lack of knowledge about something. What are they going to think of me? I don't want to be less than the shining star up on the stage in their eyes. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm not the greatest and the best. So I'm going to embrace my team, and I'm going to hire superstars around me, because they're going to rise to the occasion, and they're going to make me and the organization better. I actually had a situation where I hired a direct report, and I think it was better at what she was doing. She filled my old role, and I got promoted. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to realize how stupid and poor the guy was in that chair before she got here. But it took me less than an hour to snap out of that. I couldn't tell you how I snapped out of it, and I haven't looked back. And now I'm just craving expertise in my teammates, because I know I'm going to be stronger and our organization is going to excel. Somebody who doesn't embrace that, whether it's they're not confident, they don't trust their teammates. Well, if you don't trust your teammates, you've got the wrong teammates. They still might be successful. We're never going to know if they've plateaued and reached their potential, but odds are they haven't reached their potential, and nor will their organization.
Well, Andrew Carnegie, so you may be familiar with Think and Grow Rich, book by Napoleon Hill. And he interviewed Andrew Carnegie at length, who was at the time the richest man in the world. And during one of those interviews, Andrew Carnegie said to him, "I know nothing about the mining, the manufacture, the distribution, and the marketing of steel. But the people I employ know everything about the mining, the manufacture, the distribution, and the marketing of steel." And he said, "And my only job is to let these people shine." Now, that clearly worked for him. And that book is credited with having created more millionaires than any other program. But I think it's really interesting that we kind of know that to be sense. Standing on the shoulders of giants, the better the people you can surround yourself with, the better team you have to lead, the better you shine. Yet, still so often we see very poor examples of that, don't we? We see lack of collaboration. We see theft of glory. So, your manager is in a meeting with you and a client, and the client says, "What a fantastic job you've done, Dave." And Dave goes, "Yeah, I'm really pleased about this, even though it's your work." And conversely, when the client says, "Yeah, I'm not very happy about this, Dave," Dave says, "It's not me, it's Dan. Dan's the one that did this wrong." And, we see that time and again, don't we, in leaders?
All the time. And another tenet I talk about is own it. Own your actions, own your words, your beliefs, and those of your teammates. And if something bad happens and it's under your watch, you own that, because your team does a poor job or they make a mistake. Everybody sees that. You step up and say, "Hey, our bad. We're going to fix this. I got this, and it's on me." Great. And if you're a credible person and lead with other tenets, like taking care of your people, one we didn't discuss was be beyond reproach. If you're always beyond reproach and take care of your people, and you make a mistake and you own it, people go, "Oh, well, we know he didn't have an ulterior motive. It was ethical and moral what he was trying to do. He had our best interests in mind. It was merely a mistake. Let's move on, people." So owning it is huge. And if there are accolades being spread around, that goes right to your teammates. And when people see you do that, they're like, "Oh, this person knows what they're doing." It's obvious to those who are not superficial that you know what you're doing and you're a true leader. For those who are superficial, like, "Yeah, this manager leader guy isn't the greatest, but his team is rocks." Well, okay. I could go with that all day long. If my team's excelling and they're the best around, and people think I'm not, I don't care. The team's great, and we're moving forward, people.
So if I'm leading like King Arthur and listening to my people, how do I control for groupthink and yes men?
By respecting them as individuals. And honestly, it can go back to taking care of your people. You've laid a foundation concurrently while you're having leadership team meetings every other week or once a month, whatever. You've spent the interim time over years and months, whatever, taking care of them, showing them that, demonstrating to them that you respect them. So you can challenge their point of view. You encourage them to challenge your point of view. I always told my people, if there's something that you hear or see that I've said or done and you don't understand it, ask me. You may still not like what I've said or done, but at least you'll understand what I was thinking when I did it. So I'm an open book, and I treat people the way they want to be treated. And over time, you will establish credibility so your teammates aren't yes people, and they don't turn into those types of people, because you've embraced them and you take care of them in everything you do as a leader and a manager.
What are some misconceptions about leadership? What are we doing wrong?
Well, one of the things I've realized, so I became a non-commissioned officer in 1988. So you would think at that time, and all these different roles I had in the Army and then in education, it wasn't until 2018, 30 years after I became an official leader, it wasn't until 2018 that I realized I could lead in a manner that was comfortable for me, and that made me right. So too often, people read a leadership book or go to a discussion, or they try to emulate a good leader that they've had, and they try to be someone they're not. When people accept the idea that you can only have success as a leader if you are true to yourself, your values, your goals, your ethics, your morals, that's when true leadership can occur, and that's when confidence builds. Because it's pretty easy to show up, for me to be Dan every day. It's pretty easy. If I tried to lead like Rob, it would be challenging to wake up every day and say, all right, this is what Rob would do. It's not in my comfort zone, but I'm going to go lead like Rob.
It would be challenging for your team as well, believe me.
What?
I said it would be challenging for your team as well, believe me.
Yeah. And people do that when they interview all the time. They try to come off as someone they're not. And then when they start their employment November 1st, like, who is this person? That's not who we interviewed back in September. But if you're true in an interview and you're honest and it's a fit, perfect, because they'll feel it, you'll feel it. You show up November 1st, you're yourself. That's a pretty easy thing to do. But if you try to give them the right answers, the answers they want to hear, they still may hire you. But if they do, you're going to have a challenge come November 1st. So be yourself. And that's what I help people understand. Whoever you are, you're right for that, period.
Andrew Slesser asks, and we're glad to have the comments back, Andrew. Is it simply down to taking your ego out of the equation?
It could be that simple, yes. It could be that simple. I'm not egotistical, so it's hard for me to put my ego hat on and think, oh, I'm great. But it could be that simple, Andrew. Yes, I agree with that. It just acknowledge that you are not the best. You're the best person that got that job, or else you wouldn't be in it. You're in that role for a reason. It doesn't make you better than everybody around you. And as soon as you accept that, you're going to be better at what you do, and you're going to be able to help them in a better manner, and your organization is going to grow because of it.
So let's talk two extremes. Let's start with the established leaders. How can established leaders rejuvenate their approach to leadership and team management?
Quite honestly, when I talk to people about the two main tenets that we've already discussed, which is be the buffalo and taking care of your people. And Rob, you said it immediately when I said taking care of your people. You're like, that's so simple. And somebody else, I think Adam said, yeah, it's just a basic thing we all know. But even leaders of organizations that are huge and their C-suite executives, they forget that all the time. I was in discussion with a C-suite executive, a CFO for a corporation that employs 17,000 people. And he said, I came up through the ranks, and at one point in time, it was, how can we outshine our coworkers in a good-natured thing? And we all got better. And now the work ethic, from his opinion in his chair, very far removed from the entry-level positions, they were no longer doing that. And our discussion was about compensation. I said, you don't need me for this because you've got an army in your HR office, first of all. But here's some ways to approach what those people are doing. Have you incentivized positive performance? If you've got two people doing the same job and one is lackadaisical and below average and the other one's above average, yet your system says they're going to get paid the same amount of money, that isn't right. That doesn't make any sense. There's no impetus for that person to be above average. But if you've got metrics in place that say this is what we expect and this is what exemplary performance is, and you create a system that pays them for that, you still don't know those people, but they're going to realize, oh, the powers that be recognize the performance that I'm doing and appreciate it, and I'm getting compensated accordingly. So it's about taking care of your people. It's about being the buffalo. It's things that you hadn't thought about. It's easy to progress in an organization and get promoted, but it's oftentimes easy to forget what got you there in the first place. You're not getting promoted from the ranks to your first leadership position within in-house because you had poor leadership skills. You rose above your contemporaries, but the more you progress, the easier it is to forget what it meant to be the person trying to get to the next level and all the things you did to earn that. And take care of your people is huge. That's where I always argue. You start with being beyond reproach and taking care of your people. If you do nothing else, start with those two things. Don't give people a reason to question your words or your actions. Because if you do something that's unethical or immoral, they're going to see it and they're not going to forget. So even 10 years later, you say something in your heart of hearts you know is the truth, they're still going to have doubt because you train them that. And that's your problem to fix. But if you're always beyond reproach in everything you say and do, they're still going to question you, but that's their problem, not yours.
So you've got your kind of these kind of cornerstones of successful leadership.
Right.
And the things that if they're adopted, they become behaviors that other people can model and they percolate throughout an organization. And people call you in to help refine and deal with specific. Have you ever gone to an organization where like everything's broken? Where you're supposed to be ticking things off a list and you're putting a cross through everything because nothing is as it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's happened when I was in an official leadership position. Other departments, their people were coming to me for assistance, guidance, etc., because they saw within my department, this is the way life should be. This is the department that is well run. It's the exemplar. Let's do it like that. How it turned, getting back to ego and Andrew's question and our comments about why don't people lead in the manner that I do. I had other leaders come to me and say, why are my people coming to you? You're asking the wrong person. You should go have that discussion with yourself, look in the mirror and say, what am I doing that's driving those people to Dan, as opposed to why can't I help them myself? So it's all about taking a step back, and sometimes it's resetting. And these aren't things that you learn overnight and you implement overnight, but it's a way of life that you can start now. And if you're already at a point where you've been unethical or immoral and people in your organization know that, it's time to update the resume because you're never going to outrun that. But when you get a new position, it's time to reset and you go in that, I'm ethical, I'm moral, I'm going to take care of my people. I'm not 2 months in, you still might make a mistake because you're new there. But wow, he's ethical and moral. He's trying to do the right thing. All right, he's 2 months in, he simply made a mistake. Let's keep going. And he owned it. There's another tenant. He owned it. He made a mistake. He recognized and said, hey, my bad, it won't happen again. Let's move forward. So yes, all the time we encounter things that are broken or people that are so lost in the minutia of their job and they're down in their, like, they don't come up for air, and we take a step back. Let's talk about your teammates. Let's not forget about them. Let's talk about how we can start taking care of them through a managerial lens. I offhandedly mentioned that earlier. Do you have the right policies, procedures, benefits, compensation, all the things that go into? Is the break room or prep room appropriate? Is it someplace you would want to go to take a break? All the things that go into management lens. Are you doing those things? Are you doing leadership thing? Are you treating them well? Getting back to the example I used with Rob with the barista, the staff person at the coffee shop, if getting back to, you've got to lead in a manner that's comfortable for you. Maybe someone would be uncomfortable in a face-to-face, hey, I heard Rob, I heard that from a client today that you were doing a great job upselling them and your customer service is great. Maybe that's uncomfortable for you. All right, great. Send them an email, send them a text, send them a thank you note. Some way, shape, or form, acknowledge that. It doesn't have to be a face-to-face if that's not your thing. Or if Rob doesn't want to have face-to-face and be called out for a positive thing in front of his teammates, maybe he just prefers on the DL to be told, I'm doing a good job. So treat people how they want to be treated in a manner that's also comfortable for you.
So Dan, I'd like to come back to something you said earlier, because I think, following the rules or your principles is I can foresee that pretty easily within a team. But then the question becomes, how do you scale that so that the entire organization and any manager at any level follows?
Well, let's just great question.
To me, that's really I think scale is an issue.
I don't disagree, but let's assume we're talking at an entry-level manager position, because I love hiring. When I used to be in a position to hire a bunch of entry-level leaders, and I now embrace working with them, and I do it frequently. You're moldable. Here's what so we can have a positive effect with that team, and we're going to make that inroad. We've got a team now that's running well. Mm-hmm. That leader is going to be recognized within house or go someplace else, and all of a sudden they're a mid-level manager, and now we've got bigger influence. Now let's go from the other end of the spectrum. We're talking C-suite executives. We've got the CEO, CFO, COO, HR director, everybody in the room, and we're having the effect that it's top down. We're going to demonstrate that with our leaders, and the CFO may have various levels within his or her role that they then affect their people, and it comes from the top by demonstrating it and getting good at it. So it's normal to appreciate excellence in your employees, and we've started it at the C-suite level, or we started it at the entry-level leader level, or somewhere in between. And you model the behavior. And what happened when I referenced that a minute ago, when other department leaders were coming to, they started emulating what I was doing, and it started working for them. So the trickling in of their people into my office after hours sort of slowed down after a couple of years, because they started realizing there's more to this than making sure the lights are on and the trash is clean. Yeah, my job's done. They've got a safe, clean work environment. I'll sit back and, I'm done. And I've worked with a lot of leaders. They're traditional managers. Speaking of managing, I've had leaders work with me. I'm not a manager, I'm a leader. Well, great. Guess what? If you're not managing first, no one cares how good of a leader you are. Because if the walls are falling down and the break room is in disarray, whatever, and the lights don't work, they don't care how you're leading. Manage first. That'll allow you to lead appropriately.
Right.
So you brought the conversation to the other extreme I was hoping to address. I often contend that the most dramatic transition one has in their career is that from the individual contributor to the leader of people. What advice do you have for emerging leaders who might feel overwhelmed by the responsibilities of leadership?
I get this a lot. Be yourself, because you're right for that. Be yourself first and foremost. Don't try to be a leader you've encountered that you think is good. Don't emulate it. Be yourself. And I always tell them, and I said this a moment ago, be beyond reproach in everything you do, and take care of your people. And everything else becomes so much easier when you start with those two things. Being the buffalo, critical conversations. I talk to people about bringing people full circle. When I go into a critical conversation with someone, it's not about destroying the person in front of me. I think, I have to do this for the greater good, or the organization needs me to do this for the greater good. It's not about the person in front of me. It's about the behavior, the actions, and words. How can I address those, get that person to understand it, while also taking care of that person? So I had a senior director that was a 30-year veteran in a 22-minute conversation several years ago. I had him resign on the spot because I got him to a point to realize he was in over his head. He stood up, shook my hand, and thanked me, and he's still one of my staunchest supporters, because I went into that 22-minute meeting. I didn't know how long it was going to take, and it was only 22 minutes, but I went into that meeting thinking, I've got to take care of him as a human being. I need to help him in this situation while addressing the things that he is unable to do. And I got him to see the light pretty quickly. And it's about taking care of people. It's about being the buffalo. It's about being beyond reproach. But start with be beyond reproach and take care of your people. The rest becomes a lot easier after that.
Mm.
One of your tenets is identify inequity and fix it. How does that align with today's DEI initiatives, diversity, inclusion, and equity?
It's huge. They go hand in hand. I do a lot of DEI speaking at conferences, et cetera, and organizations. And inequity is everywhere. One of the things with which I struggle, and I've got people in my life on a personal basis, like, oh, white privilege to me must mean that I work 60 hours a week, and I get up at 5. All right, that's not white privilege, and quit trying to twist it. So I talk to people about what white privilege might be. Is it possible that you got that 60-hour week job because of the skin color, and somebody who doesn't have your skin color didn't get the opportunity? It doesn't mean you don't work hard. It doesn't mean that you haven't earned all the money and you're tired at night. It just means, is it possible you got the opportunity and somebody didn't? Well, it is possible. There you go. So DEI is huge in inequity, and it's everywhere in our society if you're willing to seek it out. Look at compensation. The pay gap between white males and females in our country. It was closing, the gap was closing, COVID hit, and the closure rate ceased, and it's still 84 cents on the dollar that women get versus white males. That's huge. So in my other company, we help people create compensation systems that guarantee equity because it's an objective tool. There's no guesswork on what anybody's paid. And if you've got people similarly situated and one's outperforming the other, the system will show that. And that's equity. And it's got nothing to do with male or female. It's got nothing to do with skin color, ethnicity, race, whatever. And it's huge as a leader to identify that, what systems are in place. Let's say you have an all-white, predominantly white organization, and you're trying to make it more diverse. Well, go to where the applicants are. Whether there's job boards at HBCU colleges, throughout institutions throughout the country, whatever, even if you've got an in-house application tool, at least post it over there and point them towards your in-house application tool. Seek the candidates out. Once they're there, make them feel welcome. Promote them accordingly if they've earned it. Make sure your social media presence matches what your beliefs of your organization are. If you've got leaders or other people who are counter to that, it's a delicate balance on how you address that, but that's got to be addressed. So DEI is huge, and identifying and addressing inequity is incumbent upon every leader at every level of an organization to seek that out and fix it.
You said Rob should lead like Rob, and Dan should lead like Dan, and never the two should cross. How can leaders identify and leverage their personal strengths, their approaches to leadership, if you will?
It comes down to, let's talk about our engaged values. Engaged values in, like, what do I do on a daily that is rooted in my core? Some may be negative, and some you may aspire to, but what are literally the ones you're using all the time? What are your engaged values? How can you harness those to be a good leader? My engaged values are X, Y, and Z. And again, everybody's right for their engaged values. You're not wrong for having those. But identify your engaged values and then align those with how can I positively affect leadership in my organization based on who I am in my core, because I'm not wrong for that. All too often, whether it's social media, regular media, life in general, our parents, norms in the organization, whatever, we think there's a model to follow. And if we're not following that model, we're wrong. So I've got to do this, that, and the other. No, that's not the case. My partner, Mike, and I, we actually had an opportunity a couple months ago where some of the feedback was, well, this doesn't fit the blank leadership model. oh, you guys missed the entire point of what we were trying to tell you. There's not a one size fits all. And they've got these automatons trying to fill these roles that they're not comfortable filling because they're trying to be something the organization has defined as leadership and aren't letting people be themselves.
Yeah, but they already bought that book. They already took that course. So
that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
For those it was very funny. My partner and I, we've never gotten 5s and 1s on the evaluations before until then. Like many people are like, oh my gosh, I see the light. Love it. This is great. And some are like, this does not fit the company credo. We do not support this. I'm like, all right, whatever. Maybe it wasn't a good fit. Maybe you shouldn't have brought us in then.
So you mentioned values. Do you sit down and overtly identify what your values are? And if so, do you have suggestions on how others can do that?
I do it, yeah. And most adults, especially adults our age, we can just rattle off 2 or 3, right? I value, for example, nuclear family. If that's your thing, great. You know your nuclear family is of value. So if I've got an extended period of time, I'm doing some type of training, a longitudinal training where I meet with them periodically, because this is not a one and done thing. Leadership is not a one. I can do like a keynote. I come in at 1 or 2 hours at a time and that's it. But typically we come in and meet with them. Hey, we'll come back in a month, we'll meet again, etc. And we start at times with a values exercise. Here's some cards. And there are some blank ones. Identify values that resonate with you. And get that, now you started with 50 and now you're down to 12. All right, well, nobody can adhere to 12 different values concurrently because that's sort of impossible. And there are main ones. So then we whittle it down to 3 to 6 roughly. So that's great. And most people can articulate that. I'm sure some of you could name your top 3 right now without too much thought. But then I challenge people, for example, family. Why is family important to you? Well, what do you mean? Why is it important to me? And I had a director said to me a couple years ago, I said, your top is family. She said, well, how do you know that? I said, every time I talk to you, you're talking about your kids and husband, which is great. But why? Well, why wouldn't it be? Doesn't everybody, it's not my top 3. So you're different than I am, and that's perfectly okay. Why is it in your top 3? And there's no right or wrong answer for that. I didn't need an answer, but it got her thinking, excuse me, who she is at her core, and allowed her to embrace that and say, all right, you're you and you're solid and you know why you're you. Embrace that and you will become better at everything you do. And that's just the starting point. And the enlightenment occurs. And then we start talking about all these different tenets. And again, I offhandedly said, you can't read a book and follow somebody else's leadership guide, and then I turn around to write a book, right? So I'm very adamant.
I wasn't going to call you out on that, but
here are 9 ways to approach leadership, provided you do them in a manner that's right for you, aligned with your values, your skills, and your context. You can't lead like I do, and I can't lead like any of you. But at the end of the day, we can all take care of our people, whatever that looks like in our worlds.
It's interesting that you said, family is one of the values, and you expect that it's similar for many of us. And as you were saying that, what I was realizing is that even if we both listed that, how we see that, how we define that, how we execute on that, still leaves room for difference, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So I introduce that topic a lot, like be yourself. Any Game of Thrones fans on here? You guys like Game of Thrones? Well, I always say, who's the best character in the Game of Thrones and why is it the Hound? And people are like, what are you talking about? So I say, this is why I appreciate that character. Am I wrong for that? Well, no. I said, if you appreciate this other character, you're not wrong for that. That's you were drawn to that person for a reason. So you're who you are. You like who you like. You have the values you do for a reason, and you're right for that. Just like I'm right for being me. They're like, oh, so don't try to be me. And I'm not going to try to be you. Be yourself. Follow these, incorporate these 9 tenets, and they are going to take you to another level in a manner that's comfortable for you, in your context.
Dan, can I ask you a question? Before we went live, you were showing Rob your tattoos on your arm.
Oh, yeah. Be the buffalo. I believe it.
So for people that are listening in, Dan's had Be the Buffalo tattooed on his arm.
And the other thing I do Friday, I told Rob before we started, it's all about taking care of your people. That's what I do on Friday. But I've sort of changed the phrase over the years. And I call it spreading the love. So I spread the love on Friday, whether it's texting a former colleague, checking up on coworkers, whatever. So on this arm, well, the camera being backwards, I've got spread the love tattooed on this arm.
And on the other arm, he's got spread the love on the other arm.
And it's important to me, and I
Cool.
love it, and I love interacting with people and seeing how I can help them. And Fridays are great because I love spreading the love. I put out a LinkedIn live post. It's or a LinkedIn post. It's scheduled in 10 minutes to go out. Spread the love every Friday, and I encourage leaders to do it because so often we forget as leaders that we've got humans working with us and for us.
Mm.
And the more often we can spread the love, can you imagine if we all consciously made positive inroads with our connections and our circle of influence daily, and we getting back to the question, how do you start that in a big organization that's broken? If we all do it and we overtly and consciously talk to people about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and they start doing it, we could spread the love all over the globe, people.
So we've just got a few minutes left. What is the question we didn't ask that you wished we had, or the parting wisdom that you hope people take away from watching today's show?
If you think you're a good leader, great, but please embrace the idea that you can always improve. If you're a different leader a year from now and you've improved, it does not mean you're wrong by default right now. We have to constantly evolve. Leadership in the 60s and 70s, different than leadership now. Society's changed, people have changed. Embrace growth. Seek whatever your process is to grow, whether it's reading books, going to conferences, listening to me, engaging with me, talking to one of the panelists, whatever. However it is you grow, embrace that and challenge yourself. By May 1st next year, I want to be a better leader. However you define that. That does not mean you're bad now. It just means you are evolving. Get in touch with who you are. What are your values? Trace back why those are important to you. You are going to be a better human being, a better leader, a better parent, a better colleague, you name it. When you know who you are at your core and why you are that person, you become more confident. And with confidence comes the ability to be a great leader.
Fantastic. Dan, as always, a great conversation with you. How can people learn more? How can they get in touch with you?
They can email me at dan@leadingbuffalo.com. The company's actually Leading Like a Buffalo, but that was a mouthful to put on so I did Leading Buffalo. dan@leadingbuffalo.com. Email me, and even if you've got questions, I'm always here to help. I'm a firm believer in give, get, so I'm giving all the time, and on occasion I get. It seems like it's give. So whatever. I love giving. It's more fun. It's the best part of the job is helping other leaders, whether it's just a simple question or we get engaged more formally. So dan@leadingbuffalo.com. Feel free to reach out. I'm here to help. Actually, I ignored a call when we were on the phone or on this interview, and it was an Uber driver I had in Tampa last week. I had an 8-minute ride from my hotel to the airport, and he said, well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going down south of here to do some leadership training for some young Marines south of Tampa. Well, that's public speaking. You know about, I said, yeah, I do keynotes, etc. Well, I'm trying to break into that, and I've got a message to send. I'm an ex-con, and I've got 17 years in the pen, and I want to help people. And I told the warden I'm coming back, but it's going to be as a motivational speaker. Can you help me do that? I said, absolutely. Call me next week. That he called while we were on this panel discussion. So I'm going to call him back when I'm done. And he's not going to hire me. I'm just going to give him guidance. We're going to get on LinkedIn, talk about what he can do, that type of thing. And I'm here to help. So as a prime example of I love to give. And if you need assistance, you want to hire me, either way, dan@leadingbuffalo.com.
You need to write a post about how that conversation goes, because I, for one, would love to hear how his career unfolds.
He was an amazing man. And like in an 8-minute discussion, we got there. I'm like, are you dropping me off the right spot? And he said, I don't know. I've never done this before. I said, well, let's hope this works. And it did. Because he always picks people up when they've dropped off rental cars. I was going to pick up a rental car at the airport, so he didn't know where he was going. Neither did I. It works. So I texted him when I was in London, like, hey, dude, it was perfect. Please, seriously, reach out to me next week because I'm here to help. So he did.
Oh, that's great. And if you have something to say, we want to hear from you. Scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live and fill out the Be Our Guest application form. On behalf of the panelists, to our guest Dan, to our audience, thank you for another lively discussion, and we'll see you next time.